What it do, guys? It's D'Anthony here, man, aka Hood Scout, back again for another edition of the Hood Scout podcast. And this is really a unique podcast, a podcast like no other. We're going to have athletes, we're going to have coaches, we're going to have intellectuals, we're going to have media members of all sorts. And don't forget, guys, to like this podcast, share this podcast, and help grow this podcast. This is not just my podcast. This is also your podcast. And the only reason it's going to grow is because you guys are going to be invested in it, guys. Sit back, get your beverage of choice ready, get your popcorn ready, get your dinner ready, get your steak ready, get your vegan meal ready. Tune in, guys. Hood Scout. Peace. Hey, what it do, world? Welcome back to another edition of the Hood Scout podcast. Man, back again. I feel like I haven't did a podcast in a while, and I know I did one about a few weeks back, but we're back again. I got another great guest with me. Like I always do, guests tell the people who you are and where you're from.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Aaron Fletcher, college football coach. I'm originally from Austin, Texas. Kind of grew up all over the state of Texas, so definitely excited to be on with you today, man.
Good stuff. And we're gonna chop it up, man. Y'all know how we do it, man. We talk about a lot of different stuff, whether it's sports, whether it's the journey, whether it's what made these guys successful as they are now. So, Coach, I guess we can start with just talk a little bit about growing up. Where did you grow up? How was that? And kind of talk about that introduction into sports.
Okay. Well, again, coming from East Austin, I grew up in East Austin. The oldest of four siblings on my mom's side and five on my dad's side. Dad is born and raised in Houston by way of Breaux Bridge, Louisiana. So but I did a little going back and forth between those two places. Went to high school at Austin LBJ High School. People that know LBJ is, if you start looking at different schools throughout the state of Texas, it's one of the premier inner city schools there. It's like a big brother of mine that he was one of the ones that put it on the map, Ray Jackson. So when we started talking about the Fab Five and basketball and things of that sort, Ray Jr. did that. Grew up there, man. My wife, she's actually from my high school as well. We're both, from the Austin area.
Wow.
Got three kids, two girls. So the oldest is a freshman in college. So you got to keep praying for me on that one. And then,
for real.
Yeah, man, that's been something. So, but she's been definitely making us proud. My middle daughter is 17. She's a junior here in Phoenix, and my son, man, my little man, he's 10. So he's a fourth grader here. So, man, I'm well traveled. I actually grew up and did some. Went to middle school at Gaston Junior High in Dallas as well. So it's a little.
Gaston, was that Pleasant Grove?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So went there. Went to junior college, played ball at Ranger Junior College, Texas A&M Commerce, where I wound up playing collegiately. Did a whole of tryout stuff. All of that stuff didn't stick. Wound up playing arena ball for a couple of years, and got to credit my cousin. He actually got me into this coaching thing, man. So been doing this, man, for 17 years now. These 17 years that I've been doing this. Years and seasons are different, but 16 years, 17 seasons, and it's been a blessing, man. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's definitely, given where I grew up. I was just saying something on my Twitter a couple of months back. Grew up in the Rosewood housing projects in East Austin. That was the oldest public housing projects in the entire country. So just being able to make it out of that to where I am today, man, I'm just grateful. I'm thankful. And it's one of those things we continue to use to push and grow other people.
Let me ask you this, Coach. I'm glad you just said that, coming from that environment, whether it's you call it the hood or whatever the case may be, how did you make it out of there? And then speak to me on what was your mindset like, because I think so many young men, they're trying to make a way out, but it's so easy to get trapped. I mean, it's so easy to get trapped. What was your mindset or what allowed you to escape some of the stuff? Because I'm sure you got friends that are probably just as good as you that didn't make it. So
Oh
what
yeah,
was that thing that made you get out of those that conditions, if you will?
man. I gotta always give glory to God, man, and because there are people gone for less than what I did. We lost people in their innocence during that time. So and I'm not saying God didn't have His hand on other people. You know, I'm just grateful in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Community was real big. So what came up in my house, man? I was raised by my grandmother. My mama was my mama 14 when she was pregnant with me. She was 15 when she had me. Um,
Okay.
so jail and hell were the things that deterred me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Those were the
Mm-hmm.
things that deterred me. I didn't want to go to jail for the rest of my life. Getting caught up in what other guys were getting caught up in, and
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I had to grow my own relationship with God. And I was raised in old Southern Baptist church, and I had to find my own way. So I got a chance
Mm-hmm.
to go experience everything from the Nation of Islam to
Okay.
whatever have you. I
Yeah.
did it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Because it was close. It was close to getting
Mm-hmm.
lost to those streets. So one of the things that kept me was I just kept that in the back of my mind, even when I was out there doing wrong. I kept that in the back of my mind, man. And rest I gotta attribute this all as a God thing, man, because it could have easily went the other way, man. So I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for the community. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in the projects, and if you did something, there was a lady named Miss Payne that stayed right across the street. She'd tell my grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Now real talk. Yeah.
you had those different dynamics happen. Uh, and I had one of those moms, man, that didn't play still.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if I got caught up in doing something crazy at school, she'd come up there, she'd embarrass you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to save myself some embarrassment,
Yeah.
I try not to get caught up like that as much, man. But I'm grateful to have a great support system, man. When it all boiled down to it, that as best it can, like I said, kept me in, because it could have been other way, could have been totally different.
Hmm. Let me ask you this, Coach. Was sports kind of seen as that central pillar to get out of that environment? And let me ask you this: if it wasn't sports, was there any other avenue?
Man, I'm gonna tell you, you growing up in those times, man, and you see it all around you. Um, everybody's, I mean, it almost sounds cliche at times. Everybody
Hmm.
talks about drugs and hustling and, uh, you know, certain levels of poverty, whatever have you. My mindset, then, you know, I grew up in that time where there was like 4 or 5 TV stations, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was just, I didn't know what cable TV was in the projects, I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I got those pliers, and we turned in the channel with pliers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Real
And
talk.
and I turn the channel and I see Michael Jackson. So there was some sort of entertainment. I knew I
Okay.
wanted to be involved in some sort of entertainment, to answer your question.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then I got a chance. My uncles are like brothers to me, so I got a chance to be around those guys, and they played football. And I was like, I'm gonna try my hand in this.
Yeah.
Then I would spend my time in Houston, and my daddy, I would play in third ward. I would play with grown men. I would play football with grown men in third ward, right in the bottoms. And
Hmm.
that's where we are. So everything they see with the turkey leg, that didn't used to be there. We used to play
Yeah.
football over there. So,
Yeah.
um, and that was a definite way out for me. I didn't. My mom, I looked at one of her tax returns. Um, I forget how old I was. I don't know if I was in middle school or something,
Hmm.
and it was probably like, man, maybe $16,000 a year, maybe.
Hmm. Yeah.
She couldn't send me to school, so I had to do what I
Hmm.
had to do. I couldn't just be good. I had to be great at what I did. So that was a way
Hmm.
out for me, big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Coach, do you think that, and it's kind of a tough question, but do you think that the kids now have those same challenges, or are they different kind of challenges?
I think there are similar challenges, but the they're met differently. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
those challenges are met differently, and I think the expectations are different.
Mm-hmm.
Two, what was a way out for me, like
Mm-hmm.
sincerely, because we've also been homeless too.
Okay.
I remember when we moved to Dallas, uh, and it's funny, my mom was married to my stepdad, bless his soul, because he's passed on, and I got a chance to see um, downtown apartments, and I also
Mm-hmm.
stayed in the shelter downtown, right by the bus station as well. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So my it was different for me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a song when people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna make it out and I'm gonna get it out the mud."
Mm-hmm.
No, brother, I'm a real
Mm-hmm.
live get it out the mud. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
today. There's still some people that have that type of struggle and they come from that type of background.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I don't. I wonder if it stops for them. After they achieve a certain level of success, does it stop? For me, I never want to be homeless again. I never want to
Yeah.
be homeless again. So, for me, it was to continue to grind,
Mm-hmm.
especially with a family of five now, you know what I mean? So, I don't, there's some people like that that are driven, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a difference between surviving and thriving.
Yeah.
To, big difference, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you get the chance to see that with some of these guys. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Good stuff, coach. So I just had to interject, man, because I love learning about the person, rather than just, we get caught up in ball, which is good, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of inner nuggets in there when you really dig a little bit. So back to football, man. You get through playing arena ball. Walk me through that introduction into coaching, man. And did you
Yeah.
have any idea how it was gonna be?
No, man, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't. I got to give props to my cousin, man, Jermaine Mason, man, and I have a coach, Ray Jackson Senior, that passed away. He was actually Ray, the Fab Five member. It was his dad. Um,
Wow.
yeah, he was my high school coach, man. So he was our track coach. He was, when I always tweet out that moniker more than a coach, that's paying homage to him because that's who he was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that was one of those guys that, take you home and feed you and do all of these different dynamics. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I always saw that he enjoyed his job, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a peace and he didn't mind getting up going to work. And I was like, man, I wanna experience that. So I
Mm-hmm.
said that way back when, but I never wanted to
Mm-hmm.
coach. I never wanted to coach. I didn't get in this thing like, oh, I'm gonna set out and be. Never wanted to coach.
Yeah.
Um, and my cousin, we went to a scrimmage. We went to go watch my old high school scrimmage one day, and he was like, "You need to be out here. Just as much as these guys do. You need to be out here doing it." And I was like, to me, coaching was like the old bike shorts, Rydell shorts, or
Yeah.
whatever they had. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
ain't nothing to play about that.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and then I saw something. I was in a den with my grandmother one day watching the news, and I saw a guy by the name of Dwayne Akina, who used to be the defensive back coach over at the University of Texas,
Yeah.
and he was just bouncing around and it was his first practice. They were introducing him. I used to watch the
Mhm.
news with my grandmother all the time, and they were introducing him and just did a story on him. I was like, in my mind, I'm sitting there with my grandmother. I'm like, you can be like that and coach?
Yeah.
It's on. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah. Now, real talk.
here we
Sign me
go.
up.
Yeah, sign me up. So I wound up doing that. Got a chance to go volunteer at my old high school with David Seaborn. So that's what got me into it there, man. Just seeing those three things they played a major part in where I am right now today. My cousin, seeing that with Coach Akina, and then just seeing that piece with Coach Ray Jackson Sr.
What high school did you start at, coach? And this is gonna sound like a very kind of dumb question, but I want to ask it. What's that
Mhm.
central difference between high school, coaching in high school, and then coaching at the collegiate level?
Okay. I volunteered at my old high school, Austin LBJ.
Oh
That's
yeah,
where I
BJ.
got my
Okay.
yeah, got to start there, and then I started out at Lancaster High School. So I
Oh
that's where
wow. Okay.
everything took off. Yeah, man.
Okay.
Coach Andrew Jackson started that whole Weibo deal, man. We believe in orange deal there. So I spent some time there at Lancaster, um, and being in the Metroplex. will definitely prepare you for the collegiate
Yeah.
level. I mean,
Yeah.
during that time, I mean, it was some heavyweights. So
Yeah.
there's really no difference. I mean, if you look at it, I would dare to say a lot of the coaches that are starting to come out collegiately, they were pulled from the Metroplex during my time. You know, we got myself. You had Kyle Ward got a chance to go coach collegiately. Emmett Jones, David Beatty,
Yeah.
Joey McGuire. You had a lot of different guys come out during that time and get a chance to go coach collegiately, man. So
Mhm.
it's still ball. I think
Yeah.
people I think people look at it like, oh, it's got to be different, and not when you make it hard, you don't have the success that you think you want to have.
That's
But
good.
just our ability to be able to relate everything that I talked about prior to and everything that I went through
Hmm.
has given me the ability to be able to relate, and that's what it's about. That's what it's
Yeah.
about. I was able to go to the same stuff I did at Lancaster, at this I coached at DeSoto, I coached at Carter. The same things
Hmm.
I did there helped me to be, one of the top defensive back coaches in the entire country in college football. Same
Yeah.
premise, so
Yeah.
there's not a difference at all. I think it's all about just being able to relate. So and there's a big game every week in DFW. Every
Yeah.
week. I
No, real
mean,
talk. Yep.
I played sock, I played Waxahachie, I played Ennis when Coach Harrell was there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
standing room only, baby. So
No, real talk. Yeah. Yeah.
so it prepared me big time, man. So when I got here and I got a chance to go play against Ohio State or I go play against USC, it's another game to me. It was another
Hmm.
game to me. So
And that's kind of
yeah,
what Coach Ward said too. Yeah,
yeah.
he kind of shared those sentiments. So let me ask you this: I'm gonna put you on the spot. Was there
Hmm.
any difference between coaching it like you said Lancaster, DeSoto, and Carter? I think you said Carter too, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
What now? I mean, if you're not from Dallas,
Hmm.
these are for the most part historic programs. I'm pretty sure people, if they're of age, heard of Carter. Then DeSoto just won state this past year, and
Yeah.
Lancaster usually a perennial playoff team. Was there any difference between these teams? I mean, about 15 minutes apart from all of them, maybe a little bit less. Any difference?
No, man, I'm gonna tell you honestly, everybody had their crazy culture. You know,
Okay,
Now, nothing like Carter. I'm gonna tell you that
okay,
the expectation. I mean, and I know it's not the same Carter from Friday Night Lights Carter,
uh
but
huh,
it's still Carter. You know what I mean? During
yeah,
that time, I mean, the expectation in the community.
hmm,
Getting opportunity to come up with Freddie James. I mean, the inner city, the games aren't always packed, but when you have those games, like
yeah,
the Oak Cliff Super Bowl and those games,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
going down. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yep.
So
Now, real talk. Yep.
it was different. Lancaster. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna back up. Lancaster was it was jam packed, and if you want to go to a show,
Hmm.
go to a Lancaster football game. I'm talking
Yeah.
about from the game, from what the district was like during that time,
Hmm.
uh, because you played all of the Corsicanas and all of those teams like that
Hmm.
during the time. And our big game was always sock.
Hmm.
We played Carter. Um, and then the band ain't nothing like it. My
Yeah.
dog AD does a phenomenal job over there with those guys and the band and the atmosphere, game day atmosphere is ridiculous. It's insane. If
Hmm.
you and you got to win. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's just Lancaster. You know what I mean? You can't be at
Hmm.
those places. You're gonna hear it in those communities. I
Yeah.
got a chance to go over there to DeSoto with Claude Mathis, who's a former teammate of mine. Um,
Hmm.
it was a lot of hype. It was a lot
Yeah.
of hype at DeSoto, man. I mean, so the expectations. So shout out to Claude, man. We won him a state
Yeah.
championship this year. Uh,
Yep.
boy, that expectation there is like insane too, because you start seeing a lot of the different athletes and things of that sort coming over there, and it's like, oh my God, it's and the big
Hmm.
rivalry then was Skyline and DeSoto. That was a big thing
Okay.
during that time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
big
Oh yeah.
thing. So you had Lancaster and Sock, Skyline, DeSoto. Then I went to Carter. It was always Carter and Kimball. And
Kimball.
like I
Yep.
said, yeah, it was still crazy, man. So to say was there a difference? You had great athletes at all of them. You had, I mean,
Yeah.
great athletes, great coaches.
Hmm.
Um, and like you said, they're 10, 15 minutes away from each other. So
Yeah.
you're going to see everybody. Those communities are
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
They're
Now
involved,
for
man.
real.
So, yeah. So
Well,
you got to come with it out there.
Now you said Coach Freddie James. That's interesting because I mean, that of course that's before my era, But I remember him from those Carter teams and watching the YouTube videos of those teams. What was he like, and what did you learn from him?
Stoic, man. So just real quick, I got a chance to meet Coach Freddie James through Patrick Williams, who wound up being he was on that championship team there. He was a running back on that championship team there at Carter when they had the whole Friday Night Lights deal there. So shout out to my boy Pac-Man, Coach Patrick Williams. Um, he brought Coach James over to us to talk to the kids. And you've heard of him, you've heard of the name before, got a chance to see it. He's nothing like the lollipop sucking guy that you wind up seeing on TV and things of that on the movies. Um, just real easy spoken. I mean, you would hear stories about some of the things that he would say and do. No nonsense now, disciplined. He created that culture. That culture and legacy still lives. You know what I mean? So he was just a wealth of knowledge, man. Just listening to him talk about how he always serviced his kids, his student athletes, and just being visible and being there for the community. That meant a lot
Mm-hmm.
to me. So you want to make sure that you always, and you saw it with his coaches. Coach Bruce Chambers coached up under him, who wound up going to the University of Texas to go coach for Mac Brown afterwards. Those
Mm-hmm.
guys were just they were mere replicas of who Coach Freddie James was, and is
Mm-hmm.
still in that community, just stoic, a pillar of stability, great teacher, um,
Mm-hmm.
didn't let his highs get too high, didn't let his lows get too low.
Mm-hmm.
He was a sharp he is a sharp brother, man. So it was a blessing to be able to spend some time with him and for him to even talk about, when we were trying to get kids off into college and things of that sort for him to acknowledge that, because that's what he was about. Freddie would send over 20 kids to school every year,
Mm-hmm.
all over the country, from
Mm-hmm.
HBCUs, junior college to what we know as Power Five institutions now. He did
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
his spirit still resonates, man. It was an honor to be around him.
Let me ask you this, Coach. And you said two words. You said discipline and you said culture. Those Carter teams were so iconic. Like I say, I'm 31, so that's before my era. But it's iconic when I kind of know a little bit about it. How did he build it? Was it just discipline and culture? What was it about the community that he was able to build that like that? Because I still think that you had the movie, but to me that don't do with service. I mean, you had guys going to Florida State, going to here and there.
Yeah.
There, it was just amazing. It was almost before its time in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. See, what people have to remember, just one of the things that I've learned about the community, um, they look at it as being inner city. Inner city, what we term as inner city today, is totally different than what we saw as inner city back then. All right. That was a really upper middle class community there. That's what Oak Cliff was. So you get a chance, and I got a chance to learn a lot about that community myself. So the dynamics were totally different, back then. The dynamics, you did have a lot of people that came from two-parent homes and things of that sort. So the stereotype and the things that we hear, that's not what that community was like. You got stuff that happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a totally different community. But he had the buy-in. Like I said, when I would get in trouble as a kid in the in the
Mm-hmm.
in the projects, and the neighbors would get a hold of you. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they trusted Coach James.
Okay.
Those families trusted Coach James. So he's all yours. You drop him off over there, and you drop those kids off right there, and guess
Mm-hmm.
what? He's all yours, Coach James. So they let him do what he needed to do to grow him, to mold him, and help him out in every single way, and that shaped it. And they got a chance to see that buy-in. You start talking about culture, they saw the buy-in because they start winning games. I saw a picture they showed me back then where at Carter, where it was predominantly white, way
Okay.
back then, you know,
Uh-huh.
and the dynamic started to change. The dynamic
Yeah.
started to change. The community started to change, and he was really good because he started bringing in and growing and mentoring more coaches that looked like him as well. So you got a
Mm-hmm.
chance to see that. Um, and those guys were able to see, hey, this is somebody that looks like me. This is somebody that's from this neighborhood, that from this part of town. have some success, and it just kind of snowballed, man. It snowballed, and then here comes the winning, and
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of the program in essence it wound up running itself. Not
Mm-hmm.
saying not taking nothing away from him when I say the program ran itself, because there was an expectation that when you enrolled to that school right there,
Mm-hmm.
Freddie James is going to have to say in what it is that you were doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you were going to class.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to be on time. So if you couldn't do those things, you weren't going to be there. There were a lot of really good football players that left Carter because they couldn't play, and you had to wait your time there, man. I'd hear some stories. I mean, like the guys like
Wow.
Greg Hill and those guys. I mean, there was some guys that were behind some guys. I mean, it was insane, man. It was insane, but
Wow.
those guys believed in the plan. They believed in
Mm-hmm.
his vision for him, and they trusted him. The families trusted him. So, um, my buddy told me one time, he was like, Coach James told one of the parents, hey, if you don't come over and do this talking or whatever, you need to take him and he can go play for you. You know what I mean? So he was
Yeah.
one of those
Mm-hmm.
brothers, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to respect that, man. You got to
Mm-hmm.
respect that, man, and that that's why Carter is what it is. They need to
Yeah.
name a school after him. You know what I mean?
Now,
He's
real talk.
he's that dude, man. Yeah.
So, Coach, and I'm glad you said that about Oak Cliff, because my father was telling me that about Oak Cliff, because my grandfather, he moved around the corner from South Oak Cliff, so we're talking 80s, 70s, and that was a majority Caucasian neighborhood. I think my
Hmm.
grandfather probably the second or third black person over, which is kind of funny because ironic that area closer to that Bishop Arts district is you know kind of changing. So it's going back to where it used to be for whatever
Right.
whatever way. But when you talk about these schools like Carter, I'm assuming Kimball was like that back then. Two parent households. Um, is there a big difference from winning with programs like that or getting kids like that versus kids who may come from single parent households? Is there even a difference there?
I think it's about what's being taught inside the home, to be
Okay.
completely honest with you. Um, because you can have, like, I came from a single parent home, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on what was taught in the home. If you
Mm-hmm.
were if you were taught and um, grow up to know, like, hey, this is how you respect your elders. You are yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am type of person. And when you get to school, you are the same way. You always respect your elders and you do things of that sort. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can have people that come from two parent homes that are the complete opposite. You know what I mean? So I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it depends on when I start talking about community, because community, uh, they actually wind up, if you look at it, they wind up exemplifying what it is that the school is a direct replication of, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you got a community that's like that, let's say they're all single parent homes, but they're
Mm-hmm.
raised like that, and they go to a school like that, 9 times out of 10, you wind up seeing some levels of success, whether it be academically, whether it be something from a athletic standpoint. There's some levels of success that you wind up seeing there.
Mm-hmm.
But when there are struggles back and
Mm-hmm.
forth, and you get into a situation where you have to go socialize and interact with other people, and there was no social development there from the jump, that's where you start seeing a little bit of, that community, which is a direct replication or reflection of that school. Rather, you start to see that as well. And those
Mm-hmm.
things, studies show that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always important to be able to have um, important figures in the school head, because everybody says it starts at home, it starts at home. Well, what if somebody was like my mom, and how many, my mom was 14 pregnant with me, you know what I mean? So what
Mm-hmm.
if it was somebody like that? What can a 14-year-old tell another somebody?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's important for that village to be like this. That way it
Yeah.
can continue to, like, iron sharpen iron. You can help one another, and you know, kind of fill in the gaps and bridge build, if you will. You know what I mean? And that
Mm-hmm.
way, it's something that your community can be proud of, and that's what we
Mm-hmm.
saw back then. I bet you your family would say that. If you look at South Oak Cliff now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's things are changing. They trust in the vision that's going on, and the community is thriving. So you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because, and I don't want to get too far ahead of it, but sports, namely football, is always that great equalizer. If you ever looked at it, when they do movies in Hollywood about sports, nine
Mm-hmm.
times out of 10, it's always football that's about bringing community together.
Mm-hmm.
How ironic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Coach. I want to take that a step deeper in this thought.
Hmm.
There's this type of thought, that within the context of, let's say, African American communities, and it might not even be fair, but you're a father, you have kids, and your husband, you know, what role does that man play in the community? And like I say, even if he's not in the home for whatever reason, because life happens, but as a coach, as a principal, as a how important is that male figurehead in the youth development? How important do you think that is?
I think he's the most important figure in his community, not just in his household, but I think in his community. Um, there's something about the presence of a man, his presence. I mean, I'm not even talking about before he even opens his mouth. There's something about that presence that will cause some guys to be able to straighten up for whatever reason. You know, it just gets your attention, and I think I think I think the man is one of the most central figures in our entire community because of that, because of his presence alone. So even if it's like you said, if there's a situation where there's somebody coming from a single parent home, I think they play a role in helping the community grow, um, helping kids stay on a straight and narrow, given their experiences, and being able to relate rather, you know, to those other young black males in that community. I think they have a huge carry a huge burden on their shoulders, and not in a negative way, but I think that's a responsibility that we all have, um, because we're a reflection of what it is that they want to do,
Mm,
or what they don't want to do at times,
mhm,
if you look at it, you know what I mean? So I think we've all been in those situations, and we've all come from those environments where you look at it and you're like, I don't want to be like that. But you
mhm,
also see those tangible um, examples too, where you see somebody and you're like, if he made it, because you can touch
mhm,
him. If
mhm.
he made
Yeah.
it, guess what?
Mhm,
I can make it too. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So I think,
mhm,
and to have that somebody in your house, um, is even more of a blessing. You know what I mean? To be able to have that person in your house,
mhm,
that carries a lot of weight, because I've learned this as a father, just by watching other fathers and other
mhm,
men before me. There's going to come a point in time where the influence that you have inside of your home gets challenged. It's going to get challenged by influence on the outside. Okay. And you'll want to see, because there's my son has grown up around football. I give you this example.
mhm,
Um, he's grown up around football, and he'll listen to me about anything and everything right now. But there's going to come a point in time, because he sees somebody else and he sees the success that they're having. It might be another player, it might be something else. He's going to adore those guys, and whatever they say is going to be the gospel to him. You know what I
mhm,
mean?
mhm,
So it's important for me as a man to be able to pour into all of those people in that community, because guess what? Eventually they're going to be pouring into who? My son.
yeah. Yeah.
So, the world always spins, man. I say this all the time. It's one of the things I always said. And one day it's going to spin without me.
Mhm,
And my name is Aaron Fletcher Sr., all right? My son is Aaron Fletcher Jr.
mhm,
And this world is going to keep on spinning. It's
mhm,
going to keep on spinning. And when I get pulled out of that cycle of spinning, my son is still there. All right. And somebody that I wind up influencing or having an impact on is going to meet Aaron Fletcher Jr. And now they're going to say, man, Aaron Fletcher, man, I knew an Aaron Fletcher, man. Man, Aaron Fletcher was, whenever they fill in the blank, I wanted to be something positive. to be able to push him so that cycle of positivity continue to flow. That's my thought
Yeah.
process, man. That's how I live my
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff. I'll go ahead, coach. Let me cut you off.
No. I was just
Okay.
saying that's just how I am. So we're important. We're those central figures, man, in the
Yeah.
community. I think you can say, "Oh, it's not my responsibility." I ain't. It is ours.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. It's so many. One thing about culture, man, especially the news and it can highlight the negative that the brothers who are taking the kids home that ain't their may not even be their children, or the brothers who are feeding kids and loving on kids often don't get the credit that they deserve, but they're pillars. I mean, they're pillars. They're not highlighted through the media, but they're pillars. And typically, when you get older, you say, "Man, I remember Coach so and so. I remember so and so helping us out." Like those memories are deeply ingrained in you. So, I definitely agree with that. Appreciate that. 35
Yeah.
minutes in, talking to Coach Fletcher. Coach, man, we and this is how I like it. We've been all over it. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
man, are we even
Yeah.
talking about sports? But to kind of pivot back, man. I think we left off at where did we leave off at? Where you coach? I think you said I guess walk all you talk about high school. So walk me
Yeah.
through a little bit of those college jobs, man. And this is how I am,
All
coach.
right.
I'm kind of a deeper thinker, and I like to not just be surface level, if you will.
Oh man, I'm all about that, man. That's how we get people, man. I think when you
Yeah.
stay surface, you can only pull so many people. The
Mhm.
best the
Yeah.
best the best fish are at the bottom of the ocean, man. You know what I mean? So they're
Yeah.
not up top. So
Mhm.
I'm with you right
Mhm.
there. But so I left David W. Carter High School in
Mhm.
2012 to take a job. My first Division I job. It was we started. It's called Houston Baptist University at the time.
Yeah.
Now it's called Houston
Okay.
Christian University. Um,
Okay.
so I left Carter in 2012 to start that program. I mean, that program, it didn't have football at the time. People knew
Mm.
about that. It was a basketball school that they were bringing football to right there on the southwest side of Houston. And
Okay.
man, we started program there. I mean, there wasn't a football on campus. No
Wow.
weight room, no anything like that.
Wow.
So we took a lot of students there that were just students. I think they signed 6 people in the spring before I got there. Um, and we wound up playing like a our inaugural season was 2013, I believe. So we played
Mhm.
like 7 games. We didn't play a full
Mhm.
schedule. We played like 7 games, and boy,
Mhm.
that was tough, man. Because we wound up, we had 6 scholarships,
Mhm.
6 scholarship kids. Then you wind up signing a couple of more. Um, and we were in that conference with Sam Houston, who had just went to play for the national championship, and we wound
Mhm.
up
Yep.
playing them, and boy, that was ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because we just had
Mhm.
regular students and
Uh
about
huh.
30 kids or something like that on scholarship, man. So I was there when we started that program.
Mhm.
Stayed there up until I actually coached our first all conference player there. I was actually the first black
Wow.
coach that ever coached there too as well. So there's a
Wow.
there's a piece of history also. I was the
Mhm.
first coach there of you know I was the first black coach there to coach, man.
Yep. Mhm.
Left there in 2015, went to the University of Tulsa
Mm.
um, with Philip Montgomery. Shout out to Coach Montgomery. He's now he left. He's now the offensive coordinator at Auburn now. Um,
Mhm. Yep.
I was at Tulsa for 5.5 years, so got a chance to do some really good stuff there, man. Had a lot of guys. Some guys go to the NFL. We got a chance to play for a conference championship. Uh, but the thing that I'm most proud of there um, is the initiative that started, the legacy of Black Wall Street. Um,
Wow.
More than anything, uh,
Mhm.
and I love those student athletes that I got a chance to coach there. Uh, got really close, man. Did a lot of stuff in the community with like a lot of my fraternity brothers and things of that sort. But the
Mhm.
legacy of Black Wall Street, that still is the highlight of my tenure at the University of Tulsa, man. So that was big to be able to do that, you know.
Speak
Um,
speak speak on that, coach. I seen a little bit about that, but that's I mean, speak on that because I don't even know if a lot now that people know what Black Wall Street is now. It's kind of a the history is resurging of what it means. But I know me being 31 years old, I had not I heard about it probably like 5 to 6 years ago. But that's just because I'm a reader. But before then, growing up, I never even heard of Black Wall Street. So
Correct.
teenager going all through school, probably till he's adult, never heard of Black Wall Street. I thought that was very interesting when you look at it like that. So talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that initiative and how did it start and what was it about?
Okay. So, the legacy of Black Wall Street, that was one of the things that was just embedded in my spirit at the time, just legacy, 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 the whole entire time. And
Hmm.
so I got a chance. I was always out in the community. How it is. You hang out at the barber shops. You do a lot of different dynamics, and I'm always just like I was in Dallas. I want to know a little bit about the community that I'm entrenched in, right?
Hmm.
And get a chance to talk about it because I didn't know about it either. I know about Rosewood. I know about all of those different dynamics. I know about Selma, but
Hmm.
you know, Black Wall Street is a neighboring state. And in
Hmm.
Texas, we didn't know about that at all. That's
Yep.
like a lot of stuff it wasn't taught to us, right?
Yep. Yep.
So got a chance to get a little bit of uh, education, if you will, from different people throughout the community. I got a chance to befriend a lot of the elders in the community. Jim Goodwin, his uh, his dad is really sharp black man there. They actually owned the oldest uh, newspaper there in the state, the oldest black owned newspaper in the state of Oklahoma. It's called the
Wow.
Oklahoma Eagle. His dad
Wow.
also owned a plane back then. So think about that. You
Wow.
know what I mean? His dad back then
Wow.
in the 20s owned a
Yeah.
plane.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
unheard of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is.
Um, so you got a chance to listen to different people talk about, and then the different people from all throughout the state talked about
Hmm.
it. A lot of the black people wound up talking about it. Um,
Hmm.
and what I saw, man, I saw that there was no tie-in. I was over at the University of Tulsa, which they want to call, if they want to say, hey, we are the Harvard of the Midwest. It's a very, very affluent academic school, right?
Yeah.
Um, but community and school relationship was like the worst, right?
Mm.
I mean, if you look at it, man, there was definitely no representation there. When we start to see, um, you had a couple of people uh, that were in positions that looked like us, but there
Hmm.
weren't a lot. And shout out to Dr. Derek Gragg, man, one of the sharpest brothers. Derek Gragg is actually he's the athletic director at Northwestern University, one of the top schools in the
Ooh,
entire
that's big
country as
time.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
man, shout out to Derek Gragg, man. So I got a chance to talk to him, and we'd have dialogue and things of that sort at times. Um, talk to those elders in the community, and I was like, why are those people feeling like they're not welcome here on campus? Where's the disconnect? Where's the disconnect? So I wondered at times. I was like, it had to be something from way back then, because we didn't really get a lot of the students nor the student athletes that were pillars in the community to even come over to the school. Why was
Wow.
that? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what got my wheels turning a little bit, if you will, right?
Hmm.
So one of the things that I wanted to do, I was like, start going out, and I would take my players to little league practices. And I was like, hey,
Mm.
you're not going to be just a football player. You're going to go out and service this community. There's somebody that looks like you that you've never met, but they've looked at you some sort of way and they're
Hmm.
inspired by you. We're going to go touch these guys. So I would take my guys and we go to some of the, TYA Bulldogs. We go to some of these little practices,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
the kids lit up. And I was like, well, we're going
Wow.
to take it a step further. We're going to
Hmm.
go make sure you guys are visiting some of these black owned businesses and restaurants.
Wow.
Just go show your
Wow.
face there. So they start to do that. And I would invite those. I would just give hey, come over here. I want you to be a guest at the game this week. Please come over and check us out. And it wasn't about football. It's just about exposing them to something else. I want to make sure that those bridges were being built so those guys, and,
Yeah.
and we were also bridging the gap between community and school. So I started doing more and more research, and I was like, uh, talked to Dr. Gragg. We wanted to put together something where we honored um, not only central pillars of the community, but people that worked as a part of the university as well, and also make sure that we did things for those barrier breakers that have gone on before us. So wound up naming an award, a Legacy and Leadership Award after Dr. Derek Gragg. He's the first African American administrator there at the university. So he's got an award that's named after him that's given out annually. They play a game every year that's now called the Black. It's this game. It's called the Legacy Game that they have. So I know the first year we wound up honoring some of the guys that broke the color barrier at the university in regards to athletics. We wound
Mm-hmm.
up talking about a lot of different people in academia who were really influential and instrumental in regards to some of the first professors that came onto the campus that were black. But we also made sure that we got out and we highlighted, during commercials and TV timeouts and things of that sort, that we spotlighted black-owned businesses. We brought them out on the field. We gave those little league kids tickets to the games, things of that sort. So that's something that's going on every year, and it wound up catching a lot of attention from media outlets all throughout the country. I remember Skip Bayless even said something about it. He
I
spotlighted
heard.
it. Um, a lot of different people, man, from ESPN, CNN, everybody came in and they got on board with it, man. And it's been going on since. So that's the thing that I'm more proud of than anything else, because you still get a chance to talk about, and you got a chance to hear people tell their stories why they were hurt too. They got a chance to tell their stories. The university is built on, that was freedmen. That was a lot of land that was black owned, and the university is built on that. You know what I mean? So you got a chance to know so much stuff. But had I not gone out there and asked questions or done that, who's to
Wow.
say? You know what I mean?
Wow.
And those are the things that before you start to heal, you got to have those conversations. How did the wound come about anyway? Right?
Yeah.
That's part of the healing process. You know what I mean? Because everybody just look at the scab and the scar and like, okay, something happened. Well, you got to know what
Mm-hmm.
happened, because that is a direct a reflection of the trauma that was inflicted or whatever happened before that. So, got a chance to address it, talk about it, and still going on. So I'm really proud. I'm proud to be a part of that legacy, man.
Man, that got me emotional. That really got me emotional just because, in part, because I love history. So, it's like
Yeah.
these stories are stories that are also in a lot of other areas, a lot of other cities, man.
Uh,
So I want to dig at this a little bit. I want to dig at this a little bit because it's fascinating to me. Um, Coach, now you've been at a few universities. I'm
mhm.
pretty sure the answer is yes. Are these schools typically kind of like the neighborhoods when it's like one neighborhood is on across the tracks, this other neighborhoods over this cross track? I think about Dallas with SMU.
Mhm.
SMU is kind of corner to Highland Park. I guess technically University Park, and then you go farther south and you pass downtown, then you get into what is South Dallas, which has a whole nother history. Are the universities you worked at, is that kind of the common thing that these universities are in areas that are kind of, I guess, affluent? Is that the norm?
Um, I'm trying to think out of the universities that I've been to. You know,
Now I heard some not, like I heard
Tulsa.
USC not. I've heard some that are not, but it's just interesting. Then
Yeah,
I also want to get on the administration piece with, like you said, Doctor. You said Doctor Bragg, right? Is it Bragg?
Greg with the
Bragg.
G. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I want to hit on that too to ask kind of like how important is it to have true diversity at that leadership level?
Okay. Yeah, so to answer your first question, there are a lot of universities, especially that I've worked at, that are Houston is the demographics and the setup that you see there in the city of Houston, where I was on the southwest side for Houston Christian University, it's different. So that area has changed. It's changing again. They're going through a lot of gentrification there as well,
Yeah,
because things are
yeah.
changing. It's the area where Sharpstown Mall used to be, and that used to be
Okay.
one of the malls that everybody would go to back then. Um,
Hmm.
but it's changing. It's changing. The city is doing a lot of work there, so it's definitely changed. But it had that makeup the University of Tulsa definitely had that makeup. Um, it was set right in the middle. Uh, 10 minutes from downtown, but you were 10 minutes from North Tulsa. Not even 10 minutes. You're probably about 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
from North Tulsa as well,
Mm-hmm.
where you have a lot of minorities live, and that area has changed as well. But um, those areas have start to change out over time, just, through gentrification. You've had people, buy buildings, start businesses there, and those different dynamics there. So a lot has changed there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where I was at the University of Missouri. It's a typical college
Now, how was
town,
that, Coach? Yeah, how's that? Because I've never, how's that geographic? And Coach, I'm one of these
Yeah,
nerd nuts. I want to know the geographic.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I love this type of stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was a different dynamic there, because it's a college town, so to speak. So everything's centered around the university.
Right.
Um, if you look at it, a lot of the businesses, University of Missouri is one of the, I mean, it's the flagship institution of the entire state.
Yep.
Um, so it's one of those rare universities that had its own law school, it had its own medical school, it had its own business school, it had its,
Wow.
I mean, you name it, they had it. I mean,
Yeah.
there are not a lot of institutions of higher learning that were able
Mm-hmm.
to offer what the University of Missouri offered. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I say that to say because when you look at the location of it, you had a little bit of everything around it because it's not a huge city. So that was a unique one in itself. Arizona State, located in Tempe, is totally different. Arizona State, who would I liken it to? Um, it's not like an area like it's a suburb. So if we look at it by the way we look at Dallas, it's in its
Mm-hmm.
own suburb, just like we have uh, Richardson or anything like that. That's what you would
Okay.
look at like Tempe being. Tempe is just
Okay.
the college part of Phoenix. It's the college suburb of
Oh,
Phoenix.
okay.
Everything
Mm-hmm.
else you have your Chandlers and Scottsdale and different
Mm-hmm.
dynamics, but it's different deals there. So, but a lot of universities are in places that are like that. 5 minutes you cross the tracks and there's something else totally different. So, um, there are a lot of universities that are like that are located in places of that sort. So, and to answer your next question, when you talk about administration, um, he's talking about how important is it to have like
Mm-hmm.
representation. I think it's very
Mm-hmm.
important. It's very important. I think just as much as it's important to have um, that physical representation there, it's
Mm-hmm.
also just as important to be able to have access to that person as well. It's
Oh.
it's it's, it's just important. You don't know what you want to be until you get an opportunity to see it. I've always been taught that if I see more, then I'll do more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what about if I know more? Well, if I know
Mm-hmm.
more, I do better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So just to be able to have somebody in that position, the thing that I've always loved about Dr. Gregg is he always made himself available. He always
Mm.
made himself available. His son was there and was a part of the football team. Um, he started an initiative there called BMI, Black Male Initiative, which was huge. He would get them as freshmen and watch them grow and then matriculate outside of the university and kind of track what it is they were doing after they
Mm-hmm.
graduated and make sure that he had different people come in and pour into their lives and speak to them
Mm-hmm.
and always empowered them through education, through resources in regards to like and what I mean by resources, that had to do with relationships more than anything else.
Yeah.
So it was big. It's you need more of that because
Yeah.
sometimes we had student athletes that didn't know that, hey, I didn't know I can be this. I never knew this existed.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but he wasn't just a figurehead. He would come down from where he was. His office was across the street. He'd come down his office, come over to the football facility. He'd go over to basketball. He'd go over to tennis, golf, whatever have you, and he'd speak to
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
he was able to give his testimony, man, and talk about a little bit, of how he got started and everything. And it was big. That was
Mm-hmm.
big, man. So
Yeah.
I think it's very important, man, because like I said, I'm a firm believer. If you see more, you'll do more. So you need more of
Mm-hmm.
that. You need more
Yeah.
of that in
And,
higher ed.
and you know how powerful that is, Coach. You don't, like you said, you don't really know that you can achieve it if you've never seen it be done. You see the football players say, well, I can play football. You may see a coach, I can do a little coaching, but you don't see the president. You don't see, and that's why I'm such a big proponent of have a lot of different experiences. Because when you have a lot of different experiences, like I've groomed horses. I mean, so you're talking about $1 million horses. So you meet different people. Like we have so many different experiences. It lets you know, oh, this is a whole nother world out here. Because if you grow up in that bubble, you don't know it's a different world out there. It's a lot of different
Abs-
experiences and unique things you can do.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
man. I mean, that's it's something about exposure. Like I said, I mean,
yeah,
just being able to get people out. One of the jobs that I had when I was at Lancaster High School is they used to watch. Um, I would always help the kids get recruited, right? They created a
hmm,
position for me, so I'm a firm believer in the gift makes room for the giver and to bring you
wow,
before great men. So they created a position for me, college and career readiness. And we would take our kids on tours to different HBCUs, different universities
yeah,
throughout the state and the region. One of the brothers that I coached with who passed away, really, really great brother, Coach James Harding,
hmm,
was a Langston alum, and he
mm,
was always able to get kids into the university there. And just think about how many people's lives changed. You know what I mean? By
yeah,
one person
yeah,
graduating. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just,
yeah,
yeah, that's important, man.
yeah. And Coach, you just said something that I think is powerful. You said they created, in essence, a position for you. Um, and I'm gonna be honest here. That's one area to me in our community that I see as lacking. So, for instance, I was reading a book one time, true story, and the guy said he said it's this lady that we pay a lot of money to. He said her job is she sits and kind of looks out the window. He said, but her job is to come up with creative ideas for the company. I guess a pretty big successful company.
Hmm.
Why does it seem like within our community we don't create those opportunities? It's like we wait before. So let's say, if another school did it, then we'll do it. Why are we innovative in creating some of these opportunities, or is it just a lot of red tape and you got to kind of go through a lot to create opportunities? They maybe look different. Like I'm a new job title. Is it that it's hard to create that? It just seems like we wait before we're innovative. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think a lot of us got to, you always think about supply and demand,
Mm-hmm.
and when you start thinking about those creative ideas, you want to make sure that there's demand for it. A lot of times we do stuff out of just the kindness of our heart.
Okay.
We see a need that's need to be made, and we'll go get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we do it, and we do it in all humility. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Um, but I think there's a piece to it to where what you're saying, like, why do we wait? I think a lot of people aren't on board with it because they don't see the need. And sometimes you
Wow.
got to be able to see it may not be a need for me, but you got to be
Yeah.
able to you got to be able to read the room, man. You got to be able to look
Yeah.
out and survey the land and say, you know what? I see this issue here. I see this issue here. Oh, this is happening here. Oh, this is happening on this side. You got to be able to. How can we put those things into one word and like, okay, this is where we want to divvy up and put resources into this situation so we can be able to serve the masses. Um,
Yeah.
I think it takes fearless leadership. I think it takes unselfish leadership also, because a lot of times if it's not my idea, you see, then it's somebody else is like, oh, I don't see the need. So you wind up running
Yep.
into those different dynamics. So I think
Wow.
leadership is one of the most selfless positions of influence that you can have and you gotta have. So that's why we see a lot of those different dynamics. And then when you start talking about getting funds and resources to be able to go service those demands, um, it's just about being with the right people and having those right relationships. I really do believe that part of it. But you got to have people that aren't afraid to go out and break those barriers, man, and say, hey, this is a need that needs to be met, and be
Yeah.
able to help out in those spaces. Because if you don't, then you wind up having those situations like you're talking about. Then we wind up seeing it, and we're 5 years too late.
Yeah.
You're 10
Yeah.
years too late, and it's like, well, you wind up losing out because we were
Mm-hmm.
afraid to step out, on faith and
Mm-hmm.
things of that sort. So
Mm-hmm.
those things are some of the things that I look at when we wind up looking, like you said, things that we see in our community, and like, man, Why didn't we just do this when we had the chance? We saw this and we were talking about it, you know, and leadership. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's leadership, and sometimes it's about, you know, it's how how everything is being communicated as well. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You want to see what it looks like. You know, what are we gonna
Okay.
do? And
Yeah.
got a plan. You got to have those
Mm.
things and write them out. You know, I know when they did that, when they created that deal for me, it was like, okay, you're getting football players in school. How about let's get everybody in school? So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take you from the classroom and we're gonna do this. Boom, 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 boom. All right, and that's what we did. And
Hmm.
you know, shout out to our administration during that time. You know, when I was at Lancaster for being able to do that. I mean, from academics to athletics. You know, they were all on board with being able to do that, and it's possible if you
Yeah.
have selfless leadership.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Because I think, Coach, like so much of, especially our community, it's we're not exposed, and you don't know what you can do. You don't even know what you can become because you're kind of in a box.
yeah,
I remember at Skyline, I went to Skyline for a few years. You know, Skyline for a long time was considered the academic school of Dallas ISD. You know, outside of
right.
Town View and some of the other schools, and we had clusters which were unique. So you had an airplane cluster, you can work on aircraft, aviation.
Hmm.
You had a radio cluster, which is funny because I'm in radio, but I never did
Yep,
get into the cluster. You have horticulture, and man, I
yep.
was blown away by the horticulture class because here I am, 16 years old. I never planted a tree, but I bring that up to say who I may have been a greatest farmer ever, but I never knew it was even possible to get my hands into the soil until I went to a school that offered that. I think so much we kind of look at the kids like, oh, they're not doing this. We're not presenting unique opportunities to them. You get what I'm saying,
Right.
Coach? And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's
Oh yeah.
powerful if we do because we don't know what can come from it if we present something a little bit different and a little bit more unique.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think like it goes back to the point I was talking about a little bit earlier. You know, if you see more, you'll do more. I think
Hmm.
exposure breeds success. We always talk about that. That's a common adage that we wind up talking about. So just being able to see those different dynamics, um,
Hmm.
that's everything. That's
Yeah.
everything. So you want to make sure that you're able to get exposed to that. I mean, you start that's a piece of agriculture, right? So when you start
Hmm.
talking about those dynamics, you know, if you don't get outside of the inner city, how do you know where something would grow? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just being able to
Hmm.
take us out, there are people that are all over different parts of the country. I got one of my good friends out in LA. He was like, I've never been able to see anything like this. I've never seen trees. I mean, they're around a concrete jungle. Everything is
Wow.
building, 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 building. But you know,
Yeah.
so being able to, you know, get that exposure is huge. You know,
Wow. That's
that breeds
powerful too.
success. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
powerful too. You know, the funny thing is, sometimes you don't realize how some of the universities are connected to agriculture and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a lot out there, man. But we're not exposed
Yeah.
to it. Got an hour in, cause you got a few more minutes.
Yeah. I got a couple more. I just got a little deal in, so I gotta get ready to get on this another
Okay,
call in
okay,
just
okay.
a second. So yeah.
Let's wrap it up real quick. So speak really quick
Okay.
yeah, about the journey at Missouri, and then
Okay.
your journey at Arizona State. And I want
Yes,
to end
sir.
with two questions. I want to ask you what define culture,
Oh,
and I forgot the other one. So I just want you to define culture and talk about how do you build. How do you build
okay.
that culture?
Gotcha. Missouri man came through. My old coach Curtis Luper, one of my coaches that I had in college football. Um, Sharp guy, you know, sharp guy. So I got a chance to get leave the University of Tulsa. Had a lot of success there. Go to Missouri, had some success there. Met some lifelong friends. So I went in with just Coach Curtis Luper and left with Steve Wilkes, who's actually the interim head coach of the Carolina Panthers right now.
Yep.
Got a
Wow.
chance to work with him, be mentored by him. Um, some really good guys, Jethro Franklin, Charlie Harbison, you know, some really good guys, um, and just a good culture, of coaches that were looking to grow you. So that was big for me and my family. It wound up being even bigger because they wind up, a lot of times in this profession, you wind up getting with a lot of different people and it's just business. But those families are actually everybody's kids are close to this day. I mean, we don't even stay
Wow.
around each other now, but our families are really close. So that wound up being a blessing, man. Just having opportunity. It wasn't just about being in the SEC. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure I was humble enough to know I needed to be in a situation where I can grow and get poured into. So that was big for me. That was big for
Mm-hmm.
me.
How did you grow, Coach? Like, what was that? What was that grind like on that SEC grind? Like, what was a typical day or week look like?
I think that, I mean, there the work hours were totally different than, what I had been accustomed to. But you
Mm-hmm.
always, you work, you put the time in. Anytime, and that's for me, it's my calling. So I want to be great at what I do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I want to glorify God
Yeah.
to the highest of my ability, right? And I want to make sure you
Mm-hmm.
get every ounce out of me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, with the work hours being long, it just gave me more time to be able to study the people that I was around. And
Mm-hmm.
being around Steve Wilkes, Charlie Harbison, Jethro Franklin, Curtis Stupert, that was invaluable experience for me. I got a chance to grow as a man, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
and understand how to handle the profession. If you watch the Carolina Panthers this year and you watch that turnaround of that program, I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
Steve Wilkes or something else, man. I mean, that's a leader, So I got a
Mm-hmm.
chance, and I've always thought that I had a level of leadership and anointing on me, but to be able
Yeah.
to see that, I was like,
Yeah.
that's a different deal right there. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So I was able to learn by being around Steve in that space, man. So that's one of the things that helped me out. Football to
What?
football.
Yeah. What? I know we got to go real quick. What's one nugget from them that you kind of gleaned from them?
Hmm. If there's one thing that I could take away
Whether
from
directly
Steve,
or indirectly.
um, most of the stuff that I learned was just indirectly because I just spent that
Mm-hmm.
time watching them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm humble enough to know I can just sometimes you just need to sit at the foot of the throne and be
Yeah.
able to see it. Um, I think the thing that I got from him from an indirect standpoint, um, he was just I saw a different level of faith for him. I saw a different
Mm.
level of professionalism for him, and his professionalism didn't take away from who he is in regards to caring for people. Some people
Okay.
can become so business to where um, they're detached from the person, and those relationships are like, they're surface, like you and I talked
Mm-hmm.
about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who he is. That's not who
Okay.
he is. He's And my wife was like, hey, you need to really pay attention. She was seeing, my wife was on me, because she studies. My wife is a counselor by trade, right?
Okay.
So, she studies people and mannerisms and things of that sort. So when I got a chance to see it and step outside of me, I was like, and saw what happened this year, with the
Yeah.
Panthers. I was like, yeah, I was like, that dude is a different dude, man.
Wow.
It's like being around. I don't know. He's like a 5-star general, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's that dude,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then you was at Arizona State, and then
yeah,
we'll
man.
wrap it up with that. And then talk a little bit about the culture, and then like what are some of your plans too, and then we'll wrap it up with that.
Gotcha. So I got to Arizona State, man. Got a chance to coach the entire. It was a promotion, So you
Hmm.
got the chance to be with some figures. Herm Edwards,
Yeah.
Marvin
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
I mean, you got a chance to do that, you do it.
Wow. Now,
So,
Coach, I'm trying to let you go, but I totally forgot that
yeah,
2 points. Wow. Now you got
yeah,
to
yeah,
hit on how
yeah.
was that? Wow.
Yeah, so we we're gonna have to do us a part two of this
Okay.
because this was just it was so major. I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you what I had to realize, right? There were, I don't know how many, but there have been, but only so many African American head coaches in the National Football League.
Hmm.
I'm blessed because I have a relationship with four of those guys. I have a
Wow.
personal relationship with four of those guys. I got a personal relationship with Lovey Smith, who's a Tulsa University of Tulsa grad. I didn't get a chance because Lovey actually helped me with the legacy of Black Wall Street. So a lot of people
Wow.
don't know Lovey was interviewing for that, and Lovey is still heavily involved in the community back there. Um, Steve Wilkes has been a head coach, is a head coach in the National Football League. Then Marvin and Herm, I got a chance to work with those guys, and it was an invaluable experience, man. You got a chance to You know, Herm is what you see is what you get, you know. So that laugh and both the energy is all day. You know what I mean? He's one of the
Yeah.
best people I've ever been around and worked with. Marvin Lewis just studies the game. He's still a student, you know, still a student, you know, no matter what, man. He just get in his office and he gets in there early and he's just watching it and he's asking questions. He's still a student of the game, man. So just to be able to see that level of humility with those guys who've experienced the the highs ups in those heights of success that they've experienced is like, dude, that's you can't say no to that. You know what I mean? So you got opportunity to see that and be around those guys, and it was a blessing, man. It's to just be able to sit there and talk, and then also be able to teach because you have to still be confident in who it is that you are and why God brought you to
Mm-hmm.
this level,
Mm-hmm.
and know what you bring to the table. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been really good, man. So. Um, and Phoenix is just a beautiful place. So you know, we actually got a chance as a family to grow and see some different dynamics here as well, man. And this,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's nothing like it. Nothing
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
What's let's end with this. What's your next step? Or what's your next step now? And then we can wrap up with this, Coach. Been a
Gotcha.
pretty good episode.
Gotcha, man. I think the next step for me, you know, I always say this all the time. It's, you know, I just want to be in God's perfect will. Um,
Uh-huh.
I do know what my calling is. And it's got something to do with that football, man. It's got something to do with
Yeah,
that. So
yeah. Real talk.
um, I don't know where he's taking me in this regards,
Mm-hmm.
to like location, but I do
Mm-hmm.
know that I'll continue to make sure I'm impacting and continue to do my off the field initiatives and endeavors because I still aspire to be able to, you know, bridge build, man. I still want to mentor. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a Black Student Athlete Summit that's coming up at USC on the campus of USC in Los Angeles,
Oh,
California. That's been held and hosted by
wow.
my great. I got a friend, Dr. Leonard Moore. So I'll definitely make sure that I'm doing that with him. Being able to speak on different dynamics and advocate for student athletes, advocate for coaches, different spaces from mental health to you know, we started talking about different dynamics in regards to NIL. We talked about a lot of different,
Yeah.
you know, we talked
Wow.
about coming out of the COVID era.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does being woke mean? We talk about all those different dynamics, you know. So I want to make sure that we continue to. I'm gonna continue to empower athletes, whether they're
Yeah.
professional, whether they're student athletes. I'm gonna continue to advocate for coaches, you know, the ones that have been doing it for the longest that look like me, who didn't have an opportunity to speak for themselves. I'm gonna be able to speak for those guys, and then I want to make sure I facilitate and still bring about change, man. So that's me. That's how I'm gonna glorify God, and that's how I'm gonna use my gift and this platform, man, until God calls me home. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah, over our end, man. Coach Fletcher, a veteran in this profession, man. We definitely have to do part two. You know,
Amen.
still some nuggets out there to be picked up, man. But I thank you. Get on
Yeah.
that call, man. Appreciate you, and you have a blessed night. Okay.